When I say which one is simpler to tackle, if I ask you the absolute value is less than or equal to 1, that means your numbers are -1, 0, and 1. Because if you recall from absolute value, I don't remember when it was, but when something says the absolute value is less than or equal to 1, that's like saying the distance from 0 is less than or equal to 1. Okay? That's literally the easiest way to dissect that. So if that's the case, and they tell us these are integers, that means there's not like an infinite number of solutions here. They're just telling us these are integers. So my points are going to be numbers that are integers that are 1 point away from 0. So I have chosen -1, 0, and 1 because they fit this description for my x. Okay? Now that I've identified what my x could be, I'm going to use the rest of this scenario, which is right here, to solve for y. Okay? Now they moved this around and they said y equals 3 minus the absolute value of x. Okay? The absolute value of y is equal to 3 minus the absolute value of x. So I'm going to plug in a -1. Okay? -1 right here. 3 minus the absolute value of -1, pull that out, that's a 2, right? Y in the absolute value is 2, which means y is either going to be one of these two numbers. Okay, remember what absolute value here means. All right? Do it again using 0. Y is equal to, or the absolute value of y is equal to 3 minus the absolute value of 0, which is 0. That means the absolute value of y is 3. 3 and -3 can produce that scenario. All right? Alan. Next one. 1. The absolute value of y is equal to 3 minus the absolute value of 1. So the absolute value of 1 is 1. 3 minus 1 is 2, which means the absolute value of y is 2. 2 and -2 both produce an absolute value of 2. Okay? Graph it. -1 goes with 2 and -2. -1 goes with 2 and -2. 0 goes with 3 and -3. And 1 goes with 2 and -2. Okay? Is this a function? No, not a function. Okay? Not a function. Okay, we're going to do number 11. And hopefully another one after that. Number 11. I'm moving my worksheet. You guys have it in front of you. Okay. Number 11 says absolute x plus, you better be doing this. If you're not copying it down, you're not going to remember later. The absolute values of x and y are 2. And by the way, x has to be less than or equal to 1. Okay? The absolute value of x has to be less than or equal to 1. All right, based on this, I believe it's a lot easier to figure this out than it is to try and figure this out without knowing what that is, just like the one above. So I'm going to start sketching my chart. And I'm going to make it look quite similar to what they did because I feel like that's the way to do it. Y equals 2 minus the absolute value of x. Do you guys see how I moved that over? Okay. All right. Notice they're not even using function notation anymore. All right. So what numbers are less than 1 away from, less than or equal to 1 away from the origin? You should have come up with 0, 1, and -1. Okay? Those are your three options. 0, 1, and -1. Okay? Now, if I plug in 0 here, I get the absolute value of y is equal to 2 minus the absolute value of 0. Okay? So 2 minus the absolute value of 0, which is 0, is 2. So the absolute value of y is 2. So what's y going to be? 2 and? Those two things can both produce an absolute value of 2. Let's do the next one. Continuing to plug in. Y equals 2 minus the absolute value of 1, which is 1. 2 minus 1 is what? So the absolute value of y is 1. What two numbers can produce an absolute value of 1? Okay. Last one. Y equals 2 minus negative 1. What's the absolute value of negative 1? 2 minus 1 is? What two numbers can produce an absolute value of 1? Okay. I can already tell that this is not going to be a relation because 0 is married to both 2 and negative 2. Okay? But let's chart it just to see what it looks like. Over 0, up to, wow, I can hardly see these numbers. Holy cow. Up to, down to. That's both of these points. Over 1, up 1, and down 1. Over negative 1, up 1, and down 1. Okay? Oops, I think I went too far. Okay? I can already see that the answer is a big fat no. All right? Big fat juicy no. That's number 11. Try number 12 on your own. Circle number 12. Let's do number 13. Number 13. And I'm going to quit here. Okay. It tells us the absolute value of x is equal to y. And it tells you that y is less than or equal to 2. Okay, remember they're asking for integers here. You can't say infinite. Okay, they're asking for integers. So I am going to just start with what numbers can be less than or equal to 2?
Mrs. Myers?
Yes.
Can I have Jessica Downer, please?
Yes.
I'm going to leave for the day.
Okay. Jesse, the rest of the assignment is going to include 14, 15, and 16. Okay? So 13 is the last one I'm doing. All right. Okay, so you're thinking to yourself, well, I can go down into the negatives, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. But what numbers can produce the absolute value of something that comes out being a positive? Okay? The absolute value of something is always a positive. So that means your y values have to be positive numbers. So I'm going to start with my y values this time. I know that seems weird. My x. Absolute value of x is equal to y. Okay, so I have already told you that I think that these can only be positive numbers, 0, 1, and 2. Right? Because absolute value is only produced, becomes a positive. There is never a negative. So I can't say, well, y is a negative 1. It can't be because the absolute value of a number cannot be negative. All right? So based on that scenario and making things less than or equal to 2, these are my 3 y values. Okay? So the absolute value of x equals 0, then that means my x has to be 0. The absolute value of x has to be 1. So what scenarios can produce an absolute value of 1? 1 and negative 1. Okay? And over here, the absolute value of x is 2. 2 and negative 2. All right, now remember, these are my x coordinates. These are my y coordinates. Okay? So x is 0, y is 0. X is 1, y is 1. X is negative 1, Y is 1. Okay, so remember, this is 2 points. That's 1. Okay, continuing. X is 2, Y is 2. X is negative 2, Y is 2. Okay, whoops, I went too far again, didn't I? Yeah, I think I did. Guess I need my glasses, huh? All right. Okay, these dots represent the 5 points that are indicated by this relation. Drawing a vertical line only crosses 1 point. So yes, this is a relation. Okay? So all we've learned today is that functions are relations, or relations are functions if the x is not repeated. Okay, relations are just sets of ordered pairs.